Well, hello again, and welcome back to another episode of the Always About People show. I'm your host, Chris Allen, and it is good to be back with you. I know that, we have been covering some amazing topics over previous weeks and previous episodes, whether we have a guest or you just get to hear me talk. We have been covering some really, really fascinating topics that our team has been pulling up, discovering, hearing from the clients that we work with across the country. And so today is no less of a topic. In fact, I believe that this may be one of the most important topics that we can discuss today. Many of you are aware of what the world is talking about in terms of the workplace. The Gallup organization talking about disengagement numbers. In fact, the highest actively disengaged numbers that they've seen in a while. We've heard the topic quiet quitting that can come from a 22-second TikTok video. But what's this next generation talking about with regard to the workplace? We've talked about the great resignation, the great reshuffle, however you want to phrase it. It's a topic that's really, really important to the workplace today. And given what we've come out of over the past few years, a lot of people are wondering, how do we engage? How do we motivate? How do we find greater performance out of this next generation? And so today's show is how to point people to purpose, believing that really it's about pointing. It's not how do I give people purpose? People already have purpose. It's how to point them to greater levels of purpose in their life and in work. And so in the description of today's show, we just talked about this need for purpose in our lives. Each one of us has a great need for purpose. And many times when people talk about purpose, they talk about it as, does your organization have a purpose? Does it have a mission? Is it clear? And what I would say is that that's probably not enough. It's probably not the right way to look at it. It's not enough for just your organization to have a purpose or a mission statement. I would say it's important that we point people to a greater level of purpose in the purpose of an organization. So, yes, I believe it's important that your organization have a mission, has a why, has a purpose, however you want to phrase it, that there's a vision in place. But more important than even that would be, how do I, as a leader, actually point people to purpose in their work? And so that's what we want to talk about today. That's what we want to explore. And again, on this show, we try to bring you relevant topics that tie back to people and leadership and the things that people are talking about in the workplace, because our purpose is that we would help to create cultures where people thrive. And so whether you're watching this live or you're watching this as a recording, I want to encourage you to join the conversation. I would love it if I could hear from you today. Ask a question, engage in dialogue, even disagree with me. That would be fine too. But I'd love to have a bit of a dialogue versus just a monologue. And if you happen to be watching this as a recording later, love for you to leave a comment, leave a question. We'll get to it. We promise. We'll follow up with it. So let's get back to this topic, how to point people to purpose. As I was thinking about the conversations that we're hearing in the workplace, the conversations that we hear across almost every organization that we work with, it's, how do I help the people on my team find purpose in their work? Actually, that's not even the question that they ask. Oftentimes it'll be, how do I motivate the people on my team? My team members don't seem like they're really engaged in the work. My team doesn't seem excited about the work that we're doing. And so oftentimes that's where the conversation begins. Only later do we get into the conversation of, hey, I think pointing them to a greater level of purpose would be a really great place to start. So why is this whole conversation even important? Well, if you've been watching this show anytime before, you know that what we're passionate about is helping to create environments and cultures where individual people can become all that they were created to be, that can become the best version of themselves. Maslow calls it self-actualization, but that's really what we're after. How do we create environments where people can become the best versions of themselves? because we believe that if we can create a work environment where individuals like you and me can become the best versions of ourselves, outside of work, we also become great versions of ourselves. We become better friends, better parents, better spouses, better boyfriends, girlfriends, even brothers and sisters. And so, whatever roles you play within family or community, we believe that having a structure where you find purpose in your work, which is where most of us will spend most of our waking hours, will actually make you better in all those other areas. So, why is purpose important? Well, we actually believe that purpose leads to life, that really it's life itself that is sustained with great purpose. There have actually been a couple of studies that I would love to just reference for you, but one study said and analyzed how purpose influences one's risk of dementia, memory loss. Researchers assessed baseline levels of purpose for 951 individuals without dementia, then followed them for 7 years. So it was over a long period of time. But those who had expressed a greater sense of purpose were 2.4 times less likely to develop Alzheimer's and were far less likely to develop even minor cognitive problems. Purpose actually leads to memory. Purpose leads to functionality. It's life. It's really life. Another study followed more than 6,000 individuals over 14 years and found that those with greater purpose were 15% less likely to die before those who were aimless, and that having purpose was protective across the lifespan for people in their 20s as well as in their 70s. And so really it's purpose that gives us life. Practically speaking, most of us have had either an example or have heard the story of somebody at the end of their life, whether it be a terminal illness or somebody at the end of their ages who have been hanging on to purpose. Maybe it's for family, maybe it's for a spouse, but for whatever reason, believing that they still have purpose in their life and are hanging on to that purpose. At least in my life, I've heard many stories of it could be a spouse, it could be a child who walks up to that individual and says, "Mom, dad, friend, brother, whomever it is, you can go now." And within a day, within hours sometimes, that person will finally let go of life because they've let go of purpose. And so when we think about purpose, purpose actually gives us life. So when we're pointing people to purpose, it's not just to get better performance at work. This is about life. So the show today is to give some practical points on how to point people to purpose. And so I've got 10 points that I want to give you today. And Pete Torrey, I just want to say thank you for joining us on the show. But you're right. Empowerment, team collaboration, investing in true interest in each employee and what's truly important to them, including dreams and aspirations, both personal and professional, is how we point people to purpose. And Pete, you're already ahead of me. So we will cover some of this in future points. Here's the first idea. Helping other people actually gives you purpose. So the reason to point people to purpose is that it actually gives you purpose. Think about it. When you take the time to actually help somebody else find purpose and they find a new level of engagement, enjoyment, a new level of motivation, oftentimes they're coming back to you saying, "Thank you so much for pointing me to purpose. I have so much more purpose in my life, in my work." And that is ultimately satisfying. However, many times in the workplace, we'll convince ourselves that we don't have time to meet with people, or we don't have time to engage in these conversations with people. I'll say this plainly. If you are a leader in any realm of life right now, you need to prioritize time with the team members, with your team members, to help them discover purpose. And as a result, maybe as a secondary impact, you will improve the purpose in your own life because you'll see that what you do actually matters. Now, what does that look like? Well, it looks like caring about the person holistically. So care about the person holistically, figure out ways of helping them to find purpose in all the various roles that they play in life. So helping others gives you purpose. Number two, help individuals understand their role and the role of each of the team members on the team. Now, there's a few kind of minor points to this. This is sort of a big topic, but this might surprise you. Most people that we talk with do not fully understand the role that they play within their organization, and they do not understand the various roles on their team. Now, for whatever reason, most people come into an organization through a job description. And then the last time they reviewed that job description was when they were hired. And their role may have morphed and changed. And if you ask them, hey, can you tell me what you are accountable for? What are you responsible for? What is your role? What's your title? Most people will have difficulty telling you exactly what it is. So helping somebody understand their role and the roles of all their team members will point them to purpose. Here are a few things that you can start with. Help somebody understand why their role is important. So why is your role important within the broader organization? Most people don't even know how their role contributes to the organization. So help them understand why the role is important. Help them understand what they are accountable for. With clarity, give them clear expectations. Help them understand how their role is critical to the success of the team. So, hey, if you don't get this done, this is how it will affect the team. Understanding how my role impacts the success of the team. A title is important. I know some people think, title is really not that important. Most of the people who are saying that are on the executive team, because at that point in time in their career, the title isn't important. But for most people who are trying to develop, grow, and climb within an organization, a title is important because it signals personal meaning and it helps somebody understand where they fit within the organizational structure. So title is important. And then understanding how the role really specifically contributes to business success. So if I understand that my role contributes to the business success in this way, it will point me to greater levels of purpose in my own work. So number one, helping others gives you purpose. Number two, helping somebody understand their role and the role of the individual members of their team helps point somebody to purpose. Number three, as a leader, help to develop strong relationships on the team. This actually points people to purpose. It's called a social support network in psychological terms. But again, when people are under stress, when they're trying to figure out what's going on in life, when they're trying to get back to purpose, nothing is more significant than having some people around you that know you, care about you, and are willing to support you. So taking the time to develop these strong relationships amongst the team is really important to pointing people to purpose. Oftentimes it's in those peer relationships that individuals can discuss and even improve their own purpose within the team context. So as a leader, develop or encouraging the development of strong relationships. Number four, help the individual recognize and utilize their individual talents. Now, I don't think leaders spend nearly enough time with their team discussing what are the talents and abilities that you have that you're bringing to the team, and do you feel like we're utilizing those? So it's really about asking the right questions, but I think most leaders are afraid to hear the answer. So if I ask my team members, hey, are there any talents and abilities that you have that you don't feel like are being fully utilized? That would be a great question that would hopefully launch into a conversation to say, yes, you know what? I've got these talents and these abilities. They could be used in this way, but no one's ever asked me. No one's ever found that out. And so again, when I think about real life stories, I think about team members on the Always About People team, that just a simple question to ask, hey, are there talents and abilities that aren't being utilized? I mean, I can think of multiple examples, but one uncovered the ability for someone to get into data and statistics and analyzing data. And it opened up a whole new opportunity for Always About People. Yes, Yuri, we're thankful for you. We appreciate you. But again, if I had never asked, you would have never gotten into that. Talents are really recognized and utilized. So I would just encourage you, leaders, the way to point people to purpose is to find ways of connecting them back to their own talents and then finding ways of utilizing those within the team. All right, number 5, celebrate success. Celebrate success. Really important to pointing people to purpose is to say, hey, we need to take a second to celebrate the success that you've had. In other words, you need to help people understand where we're going as a team. When the team gets there, take a moment to celebrate. I was with a team last week, and the CEO started the meeting by just celebrating some successes amongst the team. Feedback at the end of our time from a number of people was, that was so meaningful to me that you would just take a few moments to celebrate the successes that we've had. Oftentimes as a team, we immediately jump into problem solving. Let's find a solution to this, and let's solve this challenge, instead of taking just a few moments to celebrate success, which ultimately points people back to purpose. It's really about appreciation. And when you take the time to appreciate individuals, man, they feel purpose in their work. And then the last thing I'll say about celebration is give teammates, give colleagues a chance to acknowledge other people's contributions to the team. I think it's really, really valuable. Actually, we've done this, seen a number of companies do a gratitude exercise where you just say what you're grateful for in somebody else on the team. And it's an amazing way to take a few moments to just celebrate the successes amongst the team, but also celebrate the abilities and contributions of your other team members. So again, it all points back to taking the time to celebrate successes ultimately points people to greater levels of purpose. All right, number 6, autonomy. The way to point people to purpose is to give them a level of autonomy in their work. Now, this can be misunderstood, and it can also probably be misdefined. But autonomy in my work, if I have clarity of expectation, if I know what I'm accountable for, if I know what I am supposed to own, well, if the expectation is clear, then you should give me the freedom to go and accomplish that in the way that I see best. I might not do it the way you would do it. I might come up with a creative way of doing it. It might take me slightly longer. I might have a different way of doing it. Just because I'm doing it differently doesn't make it wrong. Then you compare the output with the expectation, and it's either success or there's a gap. If there's a gap, that's a chance for feedback and correction. But again, it's about autonomy. As an individual, I feel greater levels of purpose when I get to choose how I want to do my work. Now, in this hybrid and remote environment, obviously we've had to get better at giving people autonomy. But now when you read all the articles, we're checking when somebody logged in, when somebody logged off. We've got these software programs that are now tracking, keystrokes, mouse movement, all these other things. And so we're really not giving people autonomy. In fact, it's a deeper trust issue, but we're not giving people autonomy in their work because we're now following back behind them, tracking every single movement that they're making. And really what that signals is just, you're not giving me autonomy in my work at all. You are micromanaging everything that I do. So one way to point people to purpose is just autonomy. Number 7, ask better questions. Ask better questions. On this show, we've talked about the importance of asking questions in the past. But as a leader, the way that I can engage somebody in a conversation around purpose is to ask better questions. Like, Hey, is there a skill, a talent, an ability that you don't feel like is being utilized? Hey, do you feel purpose in your work? When you are doing certain activities or solving certain problems, or you're working on certain tasks or activities, which are the ones that give you the greatest level of purpose? The point in that question is not to guarantee somebody that I can manufacture your work all around all the things that energize you. That's not the point. The point is to say, as your leader, I want to find more and more opportunities to connect you to the work that brings you the greatest level of purpose. I don't know what that is unless I ask. I also don't really understand what that is unless I listen. And so it's one thing to ask better questions. It's a whole nother thing to actually listen to what the person is saying so that you can understand what it is that brings them the greatest level of purpose. So again, a way to point people to purpose, ask better questions, which is combined with make sure you're listening to understand. Number 8, believe in them. Believe in them. Now, I do just want to remind you, listen, this has been a monologue so far, but would love for you to engage. Any questions that you have, any real life examples, anything you'd like to share or add, we'd love to hear from you. So again, thanks for participating in this episode. All right, number 8, believe in them. The 8th reason, or the 8th step, or the 8th point to pointing people to purpose is to believe in them. We've talked many times on this show that belief drives behavior, and it starts with a level of trust. But if I go into a relationship with somebody where I question my belief in them, it will lead to a behavior, and that behavior will probably diminish purpose because that person will see right through it. That person will understand that I don't actually believe in them. And I believe that that has a huge impact on my individual purpose in my work. So if you don't believe in me, then I'm not really going to try to convince you otherwise. So I'll do the bare minimum. I'll wait for you to tell me what to do. I'll execute on what's expected, but I will not go above and beyond. I probably won't adapt, and I definitely won't be creative in my work. So it starts with belief. Believe in them, which develops trust between two people. Number 9, take a risk. You want to point people to purpose. Be willing as a leader to take a risk. Yes, it takes courage, but that courage is what encourages people to be creative, people to come up with solutions, people to fail forward. Instead of seeing it as a failure, it's an opportunity to learn and to grow. It really leads to an environment of a growth mindset for both the leader and people. And learning is pretty significant to purpose. So take a risk. Be willing to take a risk. And number 10, the last point, and by the way, this is not an exhaustive list, just 10 thoughts on how to point people to purpose. Number 10, help a person see their progress. Let me give you the story first, and then we can unpack this. I was talking with my brother-in-law at one point in time. He came from a farming family in Iowa. They were pig farmers, and again, they would have to harvest fields at kind of late fall, and he would go back to help his family. And so he would jump on a tractor, and he said that, jumping on this tractor was one of his favorite things. He felt incredible purpose because he could see the progress that he was making. So it'd be very similar. It's like all these videos about how satisfying certain things are. Like when you mow the lawn, you get to see the lines, you get to see your progress, and fresh cut grass behind you feels great as you move towards progress across the lawn. The same thing during harvest, that with a tractor, behind you is what you've accomplished, ahead of you is where you're going. And I think that there's a real art as leaders to help people see the progress that they're making. Sometimes it's about reminding them of where they've come from. We as human beings have really short memories when it comes to workplace environment. Sometimes you just have to remind people, hey, remember where we were 2 years ago. Remember where we were 6 months ago. Remember all that we've accomplished. I want you to feel purpose in the fact that we are moving this thing forward. So again, let me just do a quick review of these 10. How do I point people to purpose? Number one, helping other people gives you purpose. So if you can help somebody else find purpose holistically, it will give you purpose as a leader. Number two, help individuals understand their role and the role of other team members. And I believe that that will point to purpose. Number three, encourage the development of really strong relationships. Number four, help people recognize and utilize their specific skills and talents. Number five, celebrate success, appreciate people, and get colleagues acknowledging other people's contributions to the team. Number six, give people autonomy. Number seven, ask better questions and listen to understand. Number eight, believe in people. Number nine, take a risk. Yes, it takes courage, but take a risk. And number 10, help people see their progress. Help people see their progress. I believe that that is incredibly satisfying. And it really is about pointing people to purpose. When you think about much of what the workplace is talking about today, it's this next generation, entitled, not willing to work, not wanting to work. If that's what we believe, I can promise you that's probably the result that we'll get. If that's what we're focusing on, that's what we'll get more of. I believe we need to do a better job of pointing people to purpose. And in doing so, we would see greater levels of performance, higher levels of engagement, improved and increased motivation. People would be engaged in our workplaces. And ultimately, people would thrive because purpose is about life. So if we can point people to purpose, we're actually improving their lives. And isn't that what this is all about? I mean, at the end of our lives, we're not going to look back and be really impressed with all that we got done. We'll be remembering the people that impacted us and the people that we had a chance to influence. And so it really is always about people. Well, listen, that's another episode of the Always About People show, where we try to bring you relevant, practical topics that we're hearing, that we're seeing, that we're acknowledging within the workplace. And whether you're a leader, whether you're a team member, by the way, most of us are leaders in some area of our life, we hope that the content on this show will give you just some practical tips that will help you ultimately thrive and flourish as an individual. So that's it for this episode. We look forward to seeing you on our next one very soon. For those of you who are watching Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, we want to encourage you, and we would greatly appreciate you liking, subscribing, telling some other people about the show, because in so doing, it actually helps us improve the work that we're doing across organizations. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. That's it from the Always About People show.